Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Women's Disability Show. I'm your host for the day, Brianna Wheeler. Super excited today. We're going to be talking about being diagnosed with a rare disease. So we have some lovely guests today with all some different stories for you guys. So I'm really excited to dig deeper into their stories because they're each very unique in their own way. So we're going to get into introductions. If you guys don't know, my name is Brianna. I was injured 7 years ago from a gunshot wound, and I am a paraplegic. So let's go to Amy.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amy, and I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's syndrome, and I actually suffered with several of the comorbidities and caused me to now become a C2 incomplete quadriplegia.
Okay, and then when were you diagnosed?
Um, it was January 2021, so 2 years ago.
Okay, lovely. Okay, and then let's go to Lindsay.
My name's Lindsay, and I have something called transverse myelitis. I was diagnosed October 2021, and it has led to me having a complete spinal cord injury from T4 down, and so I am a paraplegic.
Okay, great. And let's go to our last lovely guest.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabby. I have my own social media blog on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook called Cooking on Wheels, where I share about my experience with the rare disease. I was born with a low muscle tone condition called myofibrillar myopathy. Basically, just means every muscle in my entire body is extremely weak.
Okay, great. And okay, so let's dive deeper into this. So if I use any wrong lingo during this, please forgive me and please do not hesitate to correct me as well because I don't know about this world. It's kind of a different world to me as well, being a spinal cord injury. So I'm open to learning, and I want to just know your guys's. If you guys have a problem with the way I'm wording anything, feel free to correct me. Okay. And then anybody in the chat, feel free to drop your comments. I will be going by and going through them. I'm on my phone today, so it's a little bit weird setup, but I will be clicking on it and going through them. And thank you so much, Robert, for our super chat and Ben for our super sticker as well. We really appreciate your guys' love so much. Okay, so we're going to dive deeper and just kind of explain what your rare disease is and how it's affected your body. I know this is kind of a little bit of a tricky question because it's like, oh, what hasn't it affected, But let's just give a brief little rundown of kind of what you've been through and maybe the important part that you would want somebody to know that was recently diagnosed with it as well. Let's start with Gabby.
So, like I said, I was born with my condition.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely, extremely rare to see symptoms of this condition since birth. So, because it's a genetic condition, you have it your whole life, but typically most patients don't experience symptoms until they're around 40 years of age. So, a lot of people actually live their lives not even knowing they have it. But it's extremely rare for symptoms to be seen so young. I was born in 2004. I was diagnosed in 2006, and the doctor who diagnosed me basically told my parents that there were only three other recorded cases of myofibrillar myopathy in children. But they actually all had other health conditions, like one had a neurological condition, another one had a heart condition, things like that. Whereas I've been the only patient that does not have anything else. So it's like
Wow.
extremely rare in that sense.
And
Um,
how has that been in treating your body?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
How has it been treating your body and your symptoms? If it's so rare for you, how's your journey been with the treatment process and with the knowledge that the doctors have with what you're going through?
So because it's so rare, there's not really too much research and knowledge about it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's rare even in adults, but it's even extra rare in children and all that. So it complicates things. So like in adults, it's progressive. So meaning it will get worse over time. But in children, they actually don't know what the prognosis is. As of right now, they know that I was born with the low muscle tone, but they don't know if it will progress as I get older or anything like that. So right now, the closest thing to treatment is just maintaining whatever muscle strength that I do have, and trying to build it as much as possible just to kind of make my life as easy as I can, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Wow. Wow, that's crazy. Okay, let's go to Amy. How has your what explain more of it, how it what it is and how it's affected your body?
Yeah, sure. So it is also like affects everywhere basically in my body. It is a genetic condition and one of those connective tissue disorder. So basically, it's producing the um, collagen that is not having enough strength and having a lot of laxity in it. And the collagen is like building block for all of our soft tissue ligaments, and including even the dura of your spinal cord. So, of course, that if you imagine those are affected, become very flexible. So, basically, it means that I am very hypermobile, but I also cannot hold my joint together very well, and it causes subluxations all the time. And there's a lot of joint pain and early rheumatoid arthritis, and there's also um, extremely important joints like our spine. And so I have cervical instability, and recently, like my most important things, it's just affect me become quadriplegia. Is what most doctors saying that it's very unknown right now, but some specialists is saying that I do have a condition called tethered core syndrome. So the scar tissue at the base of your spinal cord become very thickened, and so it caused the stretch and the like pulling onto your spinal cord. So then it caused a lot of stretch injury. They don't know where it gonna cause the injury, and it just right now I am waiting for the surgery to
Mhm.
just release that spinal cord, and whatever comes after that, if there's any function return, that will be like very thankful. But I still have cervical instability, having re- uh, resolve it, and so a
Mhm.
lot of times it causes back pain, and also it can cause a lot of like compression into your spinal cord.
Mhm. Yeah, wow. I mean, that is so interesting. So you basically are going by each doctor appointment, kind of getting more information as each appointment goes by, right?
Yeah, and also gets a lot of throwbacks saying that we don't know what's going on. So,
Mhm.
it can be psychosomatic, it can be maybe just in your head. And then, so you get a lot of dismissal around doctors who don't know what's going on. And
Mhm.
then you also feel very disbelieved and self doubt a lot of time for myself.
Mhm.
And even though I have 3 days, no, 5 days before surgery now, I still in my head just thinking, what if that turned out not to be the case? And so I've been basically going on to the surgery table and doing something that harmful to myself, and it's not making any province. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and also mine is like very rare case. So like
Mhm.
the Alzheimer's is not that rare. There's a lot of people having it, and they just have different severity. Like someone
Mhm.
has less severe than other, and just because of my tidal cord, especially the severity of my tidal cord, it's kind of very rare to my surgeon. And she said she only
Mhm.
saw I third case, and I'm the only adult patient that she saw is suddenly having paralysis in my both of my legs. Now it's like moving up.
Mhm. Oh, that has to be so hard. We'll definitely get more into the mental health talk because I want to dive deeper with that with you definitely and talk more about that. I know you talk a lot about it on your podcast as well. So I'm excited to get into that. Okay, so what about you, Lindsay? How's your rare disease affected your body?
Mm, a lot. So wait, well, so transverse myelitis, I think just took, I didn't know about it before I got it. And
Mhm.
basically, it just translates to inflamed spinal cord. And the oftentimes I was reading actually recently about 60% of cases are idiopathic, which means they don't know the etiology, they don't know the cause of the attack or of the
Mhm.
resulting inflammation of the spinal cord. And so that is my case as well. So I got tested for every virus known to mankind, every like blood, any autoimmune disorder, all the tests ever they can possibly, because sometimes they can say, okay, well, if you have say an autoimmune disorder that can then cause transverse myelitis because it's an
Mhm.
inflammatory response in your
Uh-huh.
spinal cord
Okay.
inflamed because of an autoimmune disorder, right? So they tested me for every autoimmune disorder that they know of, and everything came back negative. And so it's quite common, especially for these more severe cases like mine, where my attack was really fast and I was paralyzed really quickly. Like I
Mhm.
just started, I had a backache, and then I was like, what's going on? I thought I pulled a muscle. And then within 24 hours, I was paralyzed from the chest down. So, of
Oh,
course,
how traumatic.
what was that?
How traumatic. That's super traumatic.
Yes, exactly. It was a lot of medical trauma, and a
Mhm.
lot of like it's just very random. The whole all of
Mhm.
like a lot of cases are very very random, and it can impact people very differently. Like some people can have an attack, and then they are 2 months later they're walking again, or some people are, and it can impact anywhere on your spinal cord. So some people end up being a quadriplegic for their whole life after.
Mhm.
So it really depends, and some people regain some mobility years later. So it's just there's a lot of unknowns that I have to kind of tolerate every day.
Mhm. So after you were paralyzed, do you still experience pain, or is there any other symptoms that come with you having that?
So, I mean, I'm fortunate where my because neuropathic pain is very common as a result of transverse myelitis,
Mhm.
especially of the damage caused this to the spinal cord, just like a spinal cord injury. I mean, I do have a spinal
Okay.
cord injury, so
Uh-huh.
it's an injury not from an accident, but from transverse myelitis.
Mhm.
And so some people do have really severe neuropathic pain as a result, and they will have it for a long time. Um, in my case, my neuropathic pain is pretty minimal, luckily for me. So I'm lucky in that way, but I also, I think right now, like my biggest pains are more just like related to sitting in a wheelchair,
Mhm.
and we've lost all mobility. And so all those things that come with that more is my
Yeah, of
experience.
course.
Yeah. Right.
Just the kind of getting back to normal and that kind of stuff rather
Yes.
than the more struggle of the body type of thing. I
That's
totally
right.
understand. Okay, so do you identify more with the spinal cord injury, do you feel like?
That's a good question, honestly. And it's funny because I just recently I met this other woman who has a similar thing, and she's had it for 15 years, and I'm
Wow.
still pretty new. I know. And so we were talking about that because it's like always the thing where people are like, so do you have like what's your like which group are you finding yourself kind of more
Mhm.
related to? In my experience, I relate more towards to people who have spinal cord injuries because of the way that my transverse myelitis presentation kind of worked
Mhm.
out. Was I'm I use a wheelchair. I have a lot of similarities to many people who end up who have a spinal cord injury. Versus when I go to like transverse myelitis groups, it's so different. Like some people have severe nerve pain, and that's it, but they're
Mhm.
mobile, ambulatory, but they have which is such a different experience, right? And
Yeah.
so I have found actually more and more that I gravitate towards the spinal cord injury identity and groups because that's
Yeah.
kind of like my daily stuff that I struggle with.
Yeah, I kind of felt that. I kind of felt that vibe. That's why I was intrigued and I asked.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And what about you, Amy? I mean, I'm curious as well because do you identify with the spinal cord injury or just as a quadriplegic?
Um, yeah, so I actually do identify myself as a spinal cord injury just because,
Okay.
like, I think Lindsay also said, all these nerve pain issues, and I have spasms as well. And that's what initially making me feel very not fitted into the EDS support group,
Mhm.
just because a lot of people in there has spinal cord, or like even just one or two.
Mhm.
And so to the spinal cord injury support group, and I found a lot of similar experiences, and I even told them about my symptoms, and then they kind of like helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so Gabby, I'm curious for what your answer is. What do you identify as? Do you feel like you relate more to people with spinal cord injuries or people with rare diseases?
Well, I mean, I can't really speak in terms of spinal cord injury community just because technically I'm not part of that community, but
Uh-huh.
I do relate more to like the disabled community and wheelchair users versus the
Okay.
rare disease community because I feel like the rare disease community, it's such a huge, like, broad spectrum of conditions, kind of like what you were saying,
Mhm.
Lindsay. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I gravitate more towards those with just a disability or a wheelchair user mainly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting way. Wheelchair user rather than spinal cord injury because I didn't really realize that you guys are all wheelchair users and there is such different range of mobilities when it comes to rare diseases. So that's something to definitely know.
Brianna, can I
Okay, so
jump
our
in?
next oh, sorry, what were you gonna say?
Can I jump in for something? So I think because of how tattered core is a stretch injury, like a stretch spinal cord injury, so it is
Yeah.
considered as spinal cord injury. But
Mhm.
like I think I also relate to like the whole entire rare disease community just because my EDS does cause a lot of like pus or mast cells activation, and all these still have to be managed and still
Mhm.
like spectrum of like those chronic illness disease.
Yeah. And there is still that unknown factor with you as well, as though spinal cord injuries has a little bit. Yours is kind of really different in terms of you finding out, monthly what is different about your disease and what you could do, how it's going to affect your body, if it's going to be more affected. So I'm sure that comes with a lot of different mental struggles as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, what is the number one thing that most people are curious about when it comes to your rare disease? So, what's the number one question that you get when you tell them? Let's go to Lindsay.
People always ask me like, well, how can it be prevented, basically? Like, how can we not know? And I'm like, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, literally nothing. So I don't know what to
Mhm.
tell you. Like, it's really interesting. People um, are always curious about that, and they also always want to know what the cure is.
And you don't have answers for either one of those things.
Right, exactly. I'm like, and again, so that
Yeah,
comes
that
back.
has to be
Yeah,
difficult.
yeah. I'm like, but it's interesting because then if I say, oh, people are like, what happened? If you're in a wheelchair and they're like, oh, I had a spinal
Mhm.
cord injury. Like, okay. And it's like, it's more, I don't know. It's a really interesting, different, how you get like different responses and like people want to know with transverse myelitis, like, how could I not get that? And it's like,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but nobody knows. And, um, yeah.
So they
And so
don't
that's
know how you got it. Do they have any suggestions of how you got it, or you
no,
have no idea? Wow.
no,
Yeah,
it's
because I've
considered,
met a lot of different girls in this community that have gotten like bites or cuts or different things, but also there is that unknown factor with a lot of people with transverse myelitis.
yeah. Yeah. They never were able to identify like, a very clear cause, the etiology. So they just, it's idiopathic. It's considered idiopathic. So unknown origin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Gabby. So, what's the number one thing that most people are curious about for you?
So I feel like a lot of people don't really understand, like, so when I say that my fibular myopathy affects every muscle in my body, like, I don't think they fully can comprehend what that means sometimes. So
Hmm.
more recently, whenever I would normally like explain my condition, I'll usually have to explain like saying not just every muscle in my body. Like I'll be like, okay, so this means that it's the muscles in my arms and it's the muscles in my legs and
Hmm.
the muscles in my stomach and like everywhere.
Hmm.
And then another part of it also is that because of the muscular weakness, they automatically assume I actually can't move my legs, but I can. It's
Hmm.
just like, so the way that it's like measured, it's 16 times more difficult for me to use my muscles, but it's any of my muscles. If that
Hmm.
makes sense.
I love that statistic because I have a hard time expressing sometimes my pain to able-bodied people. Like it's like you don't understand just because I'm doing it doesn't mean that I'm not in pain when I'm doing it. Like every inch of me is hurting. Like it's so frustrating to kind of explain that because also another part of you, especially when it's with doctors for me and managing my pain, you feel delusional. I feel delusional a lot of times. I feel like, do am I feeling this? Like they just feel like I'm making it up most of the time. Like, and sometimes I am like, am I exaggerating it? You know. So I'm wondering if you guys ever feel that way. Gabby, do you feel ever feel that way? Like, do you ever doubt yourself or ever have to go through those mental health check-ins?
I feel like a lot of the time, like, I'll think to myself, like, so there's instances where, yeah, I do feel a lot weaker on certain days, like, and that could just be affected by stress or, like, I am a college student, so, like, right now I have midterms this week. I'm exhausted
Mm-hmm.
this week. So I'm, like, feeling kind of dead. Like, my arms and my legs are just, they're not working great.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like partially with that, like when I say like that I need extra help on certain days, it's not because like I'm, I just want an extra break or because I'm being lazy. It's because I genuinely need it, and I feel like I have to like constantly defend myself for something like that. I mean, I've never
Mm-hmm.
had really issues where someone's denied it, but it's still like it's just like that situation where I feel like I'm obligated to defend myself.
No, I 100% understand what you're saying so much. Okay, so Amy, what's the number one question that you feel like people are most curious about when it comes to you?
Oh, well, it's pretty much like, um, how did you like recently I just got this question. I feel like I've been asked, like, how did you just become quadriplegic? Whether you said you have EDS, or some people say you were C6 and C4 and C2. Like, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I really don't know. I'm a mystery. Um, I wish that I would have the answer like very clear, and that's the most problematic thing. It's like you explain to people like, oh, what's going on, like I hope it's just one condition, like, pop out and then everything can be explained,
Hmm.
but it's not.
Yeah, that's definitely hard. That unknown factor is probably so frustrating about like they have all these questions and you just do not have the answers for them, you know? Because I feel like in spinal cord injuries, most of the time we have the answers and we still get annoyed, you know? We're like, we don't want to answer your question. I feel like people that you don't know asking you questions anyways is super frustrating, you know? But also when your loved ones and families have those questions too and you don't have answers for them, I'm sure that can be frustrating as well.
Mhm.
Let me look in the comments really quick. Hi Kevin, thank you for commenting. Hi Velma, we love you so much. Call your friends and have them join us. Always a great show. Thank you so much. Hi Caitlin. Hi Twin. I miss you so much. Thank you for joining. Anybody that's there in our chat right now live, feel free to drop your questions. I'll be going through them. And if you have any experiences yourself, feel free to drop them too. Even if I know sometimes we move along kind of quickly, and even when I'm in the chat, I'm like, oh, they're already on to the next conversation. But don't worry about it. We still appreciate your comments, so just send them in, okay? And I'll make sure to read them out. Okay. So backtracking a little bit, let's see. With mental health, Amy, how has been your journey with mental health? Because I know that you've mentioned it as well in your podcast. So being so unknown and not really having these answers and being frustrated with that, how do you deal with that?
um well, I certainly feel like I've been borrowing up a lot, and previously actually I went through a very dark time period. I
Mm-hmm.
never told anyone.
No, I'm
um
sure. Uh-huh.
I was so scared of telling any doctor about it, because if you say that you were hopeless and you had suicidal thoughts, immediately I feel like I'm gonna go back to the worst time period. It's like me putting a label onto myself every single time I have a symptom that is like mental illness. And so
Mm-hmm.
I try to get away from it. And but yeah, initially I really felt like there was nothing I can, and I thought it was mental health again. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when like very weird, I have drop attack, I have like seizure that they said psychogenic seizure, and it's even my husband was telling me, um, I think you should get your head right, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
first thing he thinks about. And so eventually, like, yeah, I think I become more calm and I show less emotion in front of doctors most of the
Mhm.
time because I feel like it's helpful. And I kind of just trained myself to be like that very third person type, like, trying to explain all the symptoms, everything I
Mhm.
wanted to discuss with the doctor. And but then also I feel like it's still too dismissive. I mean, no,
Mhm.
submissive. Like they're really dismissive. So I become, yeah, very submissive about like trying to speak up for myself, and
Mhm.
if there's making me feel uncomfortable, and but I feel like I don't want to make them feel like I'm defensive and I am, not agreeing, and then they will feel like you even more of a health uh, mental health patient than
Mhm.
down with your
My heart is like really feeling for you because honestly, it's so angry. It makes me angry towards the healthcare system. Our healthcare system is just so jacked up that we have to go into these rooms and feel this way and feel like, the people that are taking advantage of the system go in there lollygagging, and they have no problem, spitting all these things out. But me, I feel like I'm not trying to get more medicine that I need. Like, I'm really just trying to just minimize my pain or up my energy or whatever the case may be so that I can function during the day. Like, can you just help me function? And it sucks that we're in that back and forth place. So have you thought about doing therapy or do you just feel like nervous to enter in like that type of conversation?
I'm always in therapy. So I have a long term therapist who's very nice and also dealt with chronic illnesses and
That's great.
like himself. And so he can really relate. But my main problem is like frustration of not figuring out because like I probably didn't mention earlier like how my things progressed like just every month like I just lose part of my function. And so
Mhm.
there was like I had to deal with this traumatic things that I wake up or realize that I cannot move my thumb or I cannot move my shoulder, and then I
Mhm.
have my breathing problem, and so you don't know what's coming, and then you trying to really go to ER, it's never resolved anything because they send you back home. They think that your imaging is normal, testing is normal, and you just feel like you're hitting a wall every single time.
Mhm. Yeah, that's has to be super frustrating. So what is something that you really wish people would understand about your rare disease? Let's go to Lindsay. So what do you just wish people would know when they hear about your rare disease? What do you just wish they understood?
I think it would be nice if there was just more awareness of just but what it is and what it means in terms of this range that it has, and that it's just
Mhm.
basically, again, like it just means inflamed spinal cord. So
Mhm.
it's the diagnosis of exclusion, which means like does that make so it's like I always try to explain that to people, like it's not like it's actually not necessarily um like a disease. Does that make sense? It's actually not a disease. It's
Uh-huh.
actually a disease of like it's just your inflamed spinal cord. And so and it is really common for people not to know what caused that. And so because I feel
Mhm.
like I always get this like devastated look, like, well, what, like how can you not know, and it's like, I know it sucks, and but it is like it's a really actually very common for it to just be completely random and for
Mhm.
people not to know. And so I guess it would just be helpful if people had more of an understanding of that part of it, where it's
Mhm.
just um, like it's an inflamed spinal cord, and it's not really known why, but I'm trying to do my best just to kind of like do my best to live my life and move on. And so I think like people not being as shocked it would be maybe helpful and more informed
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that is a very interesting take on it because, people just want to know so much information, and like it sucks because it's like I know that it sucks. I know that, I don't need you to throw it in my face that you feel sorry for me. Sorry, I've just got some Tylenol. I have a sorry.
No,
It just came from my Instacart. I don't mean to be making noise over here. Um, and and like they just the shock factor doesn't help us, the fact that, oh my god, you're so young, you're so pretty, you're so this, how could that happen? It's like, yeah, thanks for shoving in my face that life sucks, like, and I was the one person that this happened to. Like, I don't need that shoved in my face. I would love to have a regular conversation about my hobbies and about my life now,
Mm-hmm.
and I think people miss that part of it. They are so curious about why and how come and why not and all these things, that they're not even focusing on the fact that you're a person and that you still have to live despite all these things, you
Mm-hmm.
know
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so yeah. Okay, what about you, Gabby? What do you feel like you would just wish people understood?
I wish that people could understand that I don't need to be fixed or like changed in any way. Like the situation that I'm in, this will be my life, but I'm happy with my life. Like I don't see that, like, yeah, obviously I have a rare disease, but I don't see a problem in the sense of something that needs to be like cured or changed about me because I love my life. I wouldn't have the opportunities that I have right now if it wasn't for my condition. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yes, I do, 1,000%. I relate a lot, and like that's always like my alternative when I tell them, yeah, it does. This is what happened, but also I love my life. I feel like I found my purpose on here. I feel like life throws struggles towards everybody's way, and it's picking your struggle, and no matter what you get thrown, you always wish you had something else, you know. But that's not the reality. We need to look at how we can flourish with what we were thrown our way, how we can keep going, what we can change, what we can do, and I think a lot of people get stuck in that pit of focusing on something else, focusing on more. I mean, when I was first injured, all I could think is like, oh, I just wish I could walk again, then I could do all the things. In reality, that wasn't the truth, and I had to find myself again inside of my wheelchair and find love for my disability. That's a hard part. I have a love-hate relationship with my disability. So there's not always every single day that I'm excited and grateful. Some days I'm a little bit more frustrated. I'm a little bit more pain. And like, I just ask for patience on those days, so I
Mm-hmm.
wish people understood that as well. Okay, Amy, what do you wish some, you really wish people would know when you told them about your rare disease?
Initially, I was thinking about like talking, talking about the like fact that everyone's presentation is different, like with the rare disease I have, like Down syndrome or the board. But then, with everyone says it's so true, like with like I was just thinking in my head, suddenly something popped up. It was like, yeah, actually, I'm being asked a lot. Like, how can you do that? How can you do that? Like psychologically, just, I'm not, I'm not complete first, and then
Hmm.
also I adapt a lot. I was able to have the time each step when I was having the chance to adapt my life around, weakness. So yes,
Hmm.
I find a way to do things, and so I get asked so often. I hope that people would just appreciate the fact that I can do certain things,
Hmm.
and not just like really nitpicking on like how I can do it or how I can play violin. You know,
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so what has been your biggest struggle and how do you feel like you have overcome it? So maybe talking about in the beginning or even just over the years having your rare disease or being diagnosed, what do you feel like has been your biggest struggle and how do you feel like you've overcome it if you have? So let's go to Gabby. So I know you were born with yours. So over your life, over your period, I mean, what has been your biggest struggle, do you feel
So I feel like it's a little bit similar to what you just said. So for me, I feel like I have to kind of prove to people that I can
like?
like do things. So I mentioned about cooking on wheels. When I was touring colleges, I actually went to go and look at a couple of culinary schools, and I won't name names, of course, but there were some schools that they like could not understand the concept of having a disabled person in their kitchen. Like it was mind-boggling to them, and I'm like, but
Mhm.
I'm not the problem. My wheelchair is not the problem. The inaccessibility is the problem, and they could not
Mhm.
understand it. And like,
Yeah.
even on the tours, like I was with other students or other prospective students, and even the students that were giving the tour, like they were not, like it wasn't even like administrative people, they were even confused by it. Like they would not speak to me whatsoever, and they spoke to all the other students.
Ah,
um there was even, so even like the administrators, like the professors or like the admissions people, they one of them, like, just point blank asked me, they're like, well, how are you supposed to get in the kitchen if it's not accessible? And it's like, well, I would like to try and work with you guys to make it accessible. um
yeah.
because obviously if I want to come to this school and I want to be a chef, like, that's what I want to do. We'll figure it out. And he ended up saying to me, he's like, well, kitchens and like restaurants are really inaccessible, right? And I was like, I know they are, but you don't know what I want to do with my culinary degree.
Mhm.
Like, I want to have my own cooking show. So I wouldn't be in a restaurant anyways. And even if I was,
Mhm.
I would find a way to make it like accessible to me. I would adapt it. There's no, like, you know what I mean? They shouldn't be the ones
Yeah.
Yeah.
that are putting me down for it. That, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yes, of course, 1,000%. I think you hit on a great topic. The world is what makes us feel disabled. I feel like it's the inaccessibility of the world that makes me feel so out of place a lot of the time. And it has to be so frustrating when you have a passion like that and they're, not even being open minded. And just don't give up. Don't give up. I see you're grinding. I see you're doing your own thing. And you've been making a lot of waves. And I think that's so great. And I think it motivates a lot of other people that are inside of the disabled community to live out their dreams. Just because you're getting a no, don't give up. Keep on going because you're gonna get your yes. So I just would love to throw that in there. So Amy, what do you feel like is your biggest struggle and how do you feel like you've overcome it?
I feel like I went through stages. Of
Mm-hmm.
like when I was the mental illness part of it, I was putting myself with like in a box of all these labels, and so it turned out to be all physical, and which I'm very glad because mental illness is really hard to deal with, and
Mm-hmm.
the physical part as well. But at least I feel like I can somehow sometimes see it, and knowing like there's a treatment or management that works for some of my conditions. But I think right now my most struggle really trying to believe myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have pretty good intuition for my own body, but all the time because how doctors does not trust you, they think it's psychological and it makes you doubt. And also,
Mm-hmm.
like I just talked about how a lot of people questioning how I can play violin and then like how I can do such things, how I can move my arm, and then it makes me also questioning about the things that I'm doing right now. I have a podcast. I wanted to write dissertations, things like about me playing adaptations for how I play
Mm-hmm.
now. And like, why can I talk about if my hand can move or like it just I
Mm-hmm.
don't trust for how I am right now, like in my body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that has to be very difficult. I mean, and just the fact that they're just making you doubt yourself is so frustrating. And you just stay strong in that aspect and keep advocating for yourself because you do know what you're feeling. And the thing is that nobody knows like where our lines stop. Everybody's so different. So it's like you said that I can't do this and look at now I'm doing it and so you're saying like oh it's impossible, but it's not impossible because I just did it, and like all that takes is a different switch but they don't have that switch in their brain so it's hard for them to understand it. And so a part of it's ignorance, unfortunately, and a part of it's them wanting a quick fix for you and that has to be super frustrating as well. So just don't give up in that aspect of advocating for yourself because I would hate for them to, shut you down and make you doubt who you are and what you believe.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's go to Lindsay. So Lindsay, what do you feel like your biggest struggle's been and how have you overcome it?
I think the biggest struggle for me has been just acceptance.
Okay.
Acceptance of like has happened to me. Um, I didn't do anything like right or wrong or anything to cause it. I mean, it's random and it just happens. And I think like, and I'm still working towards that. Like I think you said, like, are you there? And I think I'm still working on that in terms
Mhm.
of accepting that um, this just it was kind of a random thing that happened to me, and my body has changed quite a bit. But I think what's been really helpful is to have groups of amazing people who are also using wheelchairs and doing all this amazing stuff that I'm like, oh, okay, well, like it has changed my life, but it doesn't mean my life is over. It just means it's a different
Mhm.
chapter, and trying to be really leaning into what lessons are here for me in this, and I don't know what else is available because of this, and so trying to kind of
Mhm.
flip the script, I guess, if you will. But the acceptance piece, I think, is something I'm probably going to have to work on for a long time, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Like I'm that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's one of those things that you fake it till you make it, and it comes and goes. Some people are like, when do you accept it? Like, you just need to accept it. I remember my mom told me that. I've talked about it so many times. It's like, she told me in the beginning of my endo, you just need to accept it, Brianna. And I was like, okay, here's a ding, accept, like, it's not a freaking acceptance letter. Like, what the hell? I need to work towards it. Like, it's hard work, girl. Like, this isn't something I'm just choosing not to accept. Like, I don't have
Yeah.
the tools to do it, Like, I felt so lost and so frustrated too. And it was a lot I needed to work through. But it was with finding myself and my hobbies and my love for life again that kind of brought me out of that into the acceptance part.
Yeah.
I still have my bad days and that's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also I want to touch on you being a mom. So what was that struggle like from you going from being a mom, all of a sudden, you're paralyzed in 48 hours, you don't really know. And so what was that kind of journey like for you?
It was a very hard one. I think like, I didn't have a lot of awareness or examples of women who use wheelchairs and who are moms. And so I
Mhm.
think part of it was like I just had no concept of how you could take care of kids and use a wheelchair. I didn't understand it. I was just like so baffled by all the things, all the details. But then what I realized is when I came home from the hospital and I was in the wheelchair. The kids, first of all, like didn't really even care. They're like, "Mom, you're here." Like, okay, and if anything, I was like at this like I had this cool device, and I was all rolling around, and they're like, "Let me take a turn," and so it was like one of those lessons for me of like, it was all about my kind of experience of the wheelchair and not the kids at all. Like they
Mhm.
were just like happy to have me back, and honestly, like, and then I got, and like I'm so grateful for different types of social media to then be like, looking up and seeing all these amazing women who are moms and they have like 4 kids and they've used, and I didn't, I mean, I have a different experience where I had, my kids before my spinal cord injury, and then I had it versus like I'm seeing these women who, are amazing, like having their child in the wheelchair, doing all the infant care, and
Mhm.
so like I got this, like, so seeing all these really great examples of really amazing women just out there handling motherhood from a wheelchair, and it's so I think it was one of those things too where it's like if you don't really see these things until you like are in this situation, and then you see it and you're like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, this is amazing, like it's totally
Mhm.
doable. I mean, I think there's definitely things, of course there always will be things that um I've I feel like there's a loss in terms of like the way that I used to be able to do it, and how it's done now in terms of just
Mhm.
different mother, like childcare things. However, I think what's been really reassuring and refreshing is that I realize like every day, like there's so much I can still do.
Mhm.
There's like we did like a little Ferris wheel thing with the kids a couple weeks ago, and I did it. They had like a wheelchair accessible
Mhm.
ride, and I was like, because I had this a vision that I would never be able to take rides with my kids, and what a loss, and like I was like, no, there's a lot of things you can still do. You just need to figure it out and just like plan a little bit differently. But
Mhm.
I've actually been like really happy with how much more we can still do together.
I love that so much. I just want to say really quick, for Fred, thank you so much for our super chat. He said, "Happy International Women's Day. Y'all are amazing. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it." Okay, so yeah, your journey is so interesting. I feel like you touched on a lot of different things, how sometimes just a different perspective instead of our head that can change a lot. Of course,
Yeah.
comparing ourselves to what we could do or what we would be able to do if we didn't have our disability is always a struggle, right? It's always going to be right there in our face, and I feel like that's a lot of the hard part too mentally to kind of when it comes to accepting it is that we still have that version to compare with for a lot of us. And it's so true what you said about the kids too, how they're so adaptable, and a lot of different times we are the ones who freaking out and they're the ones that are calm and are okay with everything, and it's just so interesting how much more you can do still and how they're going to grow up seeing you and how you've now impacted their lives and who they are as humans forever.
Yeah.
The way that they carry themselves in the world, the way that they talk to other people or treat other people has changed,
Yeah.
and there's something beautiful about that as well, I think.
Oh yeah, a big time.
Okay, so wrapping up, we're going to talk about passions, hobbies, or any goals or things that you would like to share for your future, anything like that. We'll make sure to add some links inside of the bios if you guys have anything specific. I know you guys have some stuff going on. So let's start with Amy. What do you have going on in your life?
So right now, I'm trying to get my draft of pre-proposal. So right before the surgery, which I don't know if I can really make it happen, but um, I am very excited about this project. So I can actually raise awareness among the musician, the disability community, and see how
Mm-hmm.
like still be like performing and all that with wheelchair. And I also very passionate about sharing a lot of my tools, adaptive equipment, and the ways of doing things. Slightly different than a lot of people, but when I shared and I noticed same thing. And I was just very happy to see all these like YouTube and videos and Instagram people have shared with transfer and shared with all the um, uh, little steps I would say when I was gradually become paralyzed from neck down. So it was very very helpful for me to adapt my life and accepting everything because then I see how easy it can be. And it
Yes.
just take practice. Yeah.
I love that you've been sharing that, and you also started doing your podcast, right?
Yeah. So I
So what is that
stopped
about?
yeah, I stopped doing podcast for from 2 years ago, and I also stopped my YouTube. And it was very refreshing again, like starting all the new gadgets and the software. But I love it just because the fact that you can share your story and making people feel resonate and not alone. And I think that's the most important.
Yes, I love it so much. I love what you're doing, and I love what you're putting out there. And yeah, we just need to share our stories because we never know who's going to relate to it, And that's something that I love about this channel too. Is just different perspectives. We're hoping people can come here and learn and learn these tips and tricks that they're scared to ask about and learn about people's journeys and know, hey, I'm not alone in this world. Look at even if there's one more person out there playing violin or cooking or being a mom, that's somebody that is like me and that will keep me going. And there's beauty in that too that I really helps me move forward. Love it so much. Okay, so let's go to Gabby. So what are your passions and your hobbies and what is your future goals?
So I kind of mentioned this already, but I will
Mhm.
explain a little more. So, like I said, I run an advocacy blog on social media called Cooking on Wheels. I've done that for about 3 years now. I started it during COVID. I never even knew I loved to cook, and I was cooking just to kind of like pass the time, just
Mhm.
at home, like at the height of the pandemic and all that. And I really fell in love with cooking, and I started cooking on wheels, and I just started posting my recipes, and I started getting into like the disability advocacy side of things. And again, I really fell in love with that. I had been doing rare disease fundraisers before that. Last week, actually, I just completed my sixth fundraiser. But at
Woohoo,
the
that's
time, I'd
super
already,
dope. I love that.
thank you. Um, so uh, at that point, I had already been doing fundraisers for about 3 years. So I already was a little bit in like that advocacy side of things, and I was sharing
Mhm.
my story. I really loved that side of it. So I was like, okay, let's create Cooking on Wheels. And like, I kid you not, it was a random thought I had at like 3 a.m. on like a random Tuesday or
Those are the
something.
best.
Like, I don't know. I was like, okay, we're gonna start a cooking account. And I was like, all right, what do I want to name it? And I was like, how about Cooking on Wheels? Like, it just like came to my brain, and I was like, all right. So like, it was kind of a spur of the moment thing, and it's turned into this like incredible journey for me. And basically, it's what I want to do with my life. Like I said, um, I want to have my own cooking show with some kind of like disability advocacy component to it. Right now, I'm at the University of Connecticut studying communications and human rights studies, and I'm taking American Sign Language as well, just to be as inclusive as possible. Um, so,
Wow,
with
girl,
all
you
those
got it going
components,
on. You got a lot going on.
so with
Making
all those
waves.
components, I'm hoping to have my own cooking show one day. Um,
Yes, put that manifestation into the air, girl. We know you're gonna have your own cooking show, and I cannot wait to see it and watch it. Bring me on as a guest, and I'm gonna bring you back to the smaller
absolutely.
breed. You got this. Don't worry. I love to cook too, and I think that I was something that was taken away afterwards. But so many people think that they can't do it. So many newly injured people that I talk to is like, how am I gonna cook? How am I going to get things done in the kitchen? You know, how am I going to make stuff for my kids? And it's so possible, but it was adaptive. Of course, you have to adapt different things and learn different tips and tricks. And like, it's hard to do it on your own. So it's super cool that you have a show showing yourself and talking about these things and advocating. And like, that's what we need. I love that it's a different category that not a lot of people are into. You know, not a lot of people are choosing to make content.
Yeah.
Well, and I just
Super
wanted
unique.
to add really quick, if you don't
Mhm.
mind.
Yeah. Of course.
um, so part of it is that so you mentioned like that people like you said like after you're injured and stuff like that that you really
Mhm.
don't think that you can cook. That's part of the reason why I never really like learned to cook, I feel like. And like I
Mhm.
said, I was doing it just to pass the time, but it was like, okay, I can actually do this. Like, yeah, it's going to take a lot of adaptations. Like, I can't reach my stove at home. I actually have an electric stove top that I put on my kitchen table. My mom does
Mhm.
not love that. I'm just saying, because it does mess up the table a little bit, but it's worth it because I get to cook and she knows that I love it, so she's okay with
Uh-huh.
it. But like things like that that needed to be adapted in order for me to be able to cook. And even here at UConn, I've started my own show. I'm only a freshman, but I started my own show, and it's posted on YouTube. It's also called Cooking on Wheels, and it's with UConn's TV network. They're called UCTV. And the same
Super
thing,
cool.
I had to adapt that kitchen as well, because that kitchen, of course, was not accessible in a sense. And
Mhm.
we worked together between me and like they're all students, but it's like a filming crew. We all work together as a way to make it as accessible as possible for me.
Did you record the process of making it accessible?
No, I really should have.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
mean, maybe
not.
even going back and talking about what you had to change, I think that people would find that interesting because sometimes you're looking at your kitchen and you're like, what do I need to do, you know, to make this accessible or to what do I need to buy so that's easier for me to cook or whatever the case may be, you know? So seeing that transformation of an inaccessible place becoming accessible based off of changes, I think could be intriguing to some people, you know?
Mhm.
So I can actually show you. I don't know if it'll show up on the screen. I can try my best. That's my kitchen studio. So it's
Oh,
actually a
that's
Oh,
classroom
dope.
cool.
that they had a stainless steel counter. And hold on, I'm going to try and zoom in. Sorry. If you can see there, that's my
Uh-huh.
stove top. I was making French
Okay.
toast there. But
Super cool.
in my power chair, I'm able to elevate my chair so I can reach the countertop, and I'm able to cook like in this makeshift kitchen that we've created, but it's with all different adaptive equipment that like I use and all that.
I love it. I love it so much. That's super cool. We'll make sure to add the links of all Gabby's stuff inside of our bio. So make sure to go check them out, subscribe, like, comment. Make sure to watch all their stuff, okay? Because they're super amazing and they're making waves in the community. So over the years, you're going to see a lot of different stuff in them, I promise. Okay, Lindsay, what do you have going on? Any passions or hobbies that you got going on or any plans for the future?
Well, I love cooking as well, so I'm definitely pumped about Gabby's all her stuff out there because I was devastated when this all went down, and I was like, I know I'm never gonna be able to enjoy cooking again. But I've slowly but surely started to adapt some things in my kitchen. I've kind of started to rediscover my love of cooking. Um, and yeah, but I think so for me, so I'm a psychologist in private practice, and I specialize working with women in the perinatal stage of so anywhere from like, I think I want to get pregnant maybe to becoming a parent. And so and this is something, I'm a certified perinatal mental health professional. And so now that I, have this experience and I'm seeing all these other women who are mothers and they're using wheelchairs or have disabilities, I'm kind of interested in someday, somehow, I'd love to maybe set up some sort of support group, or I don't know, maybe there already is, but something to where I can use my special skills to support women who have disabilities or moms who end up using wheelchairs for whatever reason. I'd love that.
I love that. I think that that would be so beautiful and such a great passion to dive into because there is a lot of new moms and they feel very confused once they get pregnant. There isn't a lot of stuff on it.
Mm.
And unless you find these people on social media, do you have access to that? But it's not really at the tips of at your fingertips. When you Google it or whatever the case may be, the doctors, they don't really have the answers for you.
Yeah.
So from hearing from somebody who's gone through it or even has studied it is so important. We have a therapist on our show, Jessica. She's on monthly with us, and she has her own practice and has done a lot of things, and she helps people that are in chairs and are not in chairs as well. So maybe I can get you two connected and you can ask some questions with her and see what we can set up.
I'd love that. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, I love that too. Okay, so I will make sure to put that on my notes and I'll start a group chat with us for sure. And then if anything, I could just send different moms your way, but we would just see how it would go. Maybe even talk to, what state are you located in?
I'm in California.
Okay, great. Love that again. What part?
Northern California. I'm like near, kind of close to San Francisco in the East Bay.
Okay. So I'm more in like the LA area, but that's okay. I'm gonna see about talking with the Triumph Foundation, which is a great foundation. If you guys don't know, in Southern California, they host support groups all up and down Southern California, and we have a couple a little bit more higher. So I would love to talk with him and just blast out an email, even talking and seeing if we can get some different girls thinking pregnant, all different stages, and get us in there with the support group, and maybe have you do a little speech if you're interested.
Oh yeah, I love that. Absolutely.
Okay, great. That's what this is all about. It's all about speaking up, getting together, helping each other out. That's what this community is about. And that's what motivates me and thrills me too, right? Is the beauty of getting to meet these people and getting fired up based off of their dreams. Like having this conversation and hearing your dreams have made me fired up about my dreams too, and it's made me fired up to see you guys accomplish your dreams. And I feel like that's what's so cool about the disabled community too, is the support that we get from one another.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so that's about the wrap up of our show. I just want to give a couple shout outs for our sponsors. Our sponsors are mobility professionals and urology professionals. They are so helpful. They help with all your wheelchair stuff or all your adaptive. They even help with shower chairs and different mobility things like that. Equipment. They have a whole warehouse of stuff. So make sure to give them an email or a call. Urology professionals is their sister company. I think that's how you say it. Anyways, they're close together and they are under one company and they're so great. And then our next sponsor is Feeldom. Feeldom is a great baggage company. They have these wonderful bags that help fit on your wheelchair around and fit tons of different things. So make sure to go check them out. They're also going to be at the Buildies Expo this weekend, which Literal is going to be at too. We're going to be in the first row. I don't remember exactly the booth number, but maybe Sean can write it inside of the chat for me. And make sure you guys stop by. We have some new stickers. We have some new merch. We're going to be fired up that weekend. So make sure to visit us, visit Feeldom, and visit mobility and urology professionals. And there's going to be tons of stuff there. So if you're not planning to go, you guys definitely need a plan to go if you guys are in Southern California. Let me think. Okay, booth 1103. Thank you, Sean. So make sure to go visit us there. Let me think. Is that the end of our announcements? The guys are back on Tuesday. Tom is going to be hosting a gaming show in a little bit, so he'll be on soon playing some games. Maybe I'll hop on with him for a little bit. And then I am going to be back next week with the girls for our monthly show that we missed last month about relationships and sex. So make sure you tune in for that as well. Okay, I think that's it. Oh, Rolling Over the Hill is coming to you too. One of these days, one of these Thursdays, I'm sure Sean has a little pop up for them as well. Do you? Great, Rolling Over the Hill show. Okay, so make sure to go check us out and check out our merch and subscribe. We appreciate all you guys so much. Thank you to our lovely guests again. You guys were so great. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story with us. We appreciate it. Bye, guys. Until next time, let's roll.